Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology, and this is September 27th through October 3rd, 2021. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is Empowering Astrology. So if you are joining me tonight, and even if you're joining me tonight for the first time, just kind of quickly introduce myself. I am an astrologer and psychic medium here in the New York City area, and we come together every week to talk about the astrology, and something that I say over and over again, perhaps a little bit ad nauseum, but the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%, because what is astrology? It's energy. It's the energy of time, of archetypes, and how we all collectively and personally live this energy. So this is why we all are having very similar experiences, but at the same time are having very different experiences based on our sun sign, or maybe our rising sign if you know your rising sign. But it's just like to kind of remind people, how do we use this energy? And as I record this, we're starting Mercury Retrograde. It's like the headliner this week. And Mercury Retrograde is a perfect time to remind everybody that the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%, but we will get to that in a moment. I see some familiar faces. I know some of you are my clients. Some of you watch every week, and I deeply appreciate your support. Let me know where you're watching from, because it's pretty cool to see where in the world we are, because we are all over the world. I know some of you are in Africa. Some of you are waking up in Australia with me. Some of you watch the replay. And yes, you can watch the replay on Spotify. Well, not watch it, listen. Or watch it on YouTube or Instagram, IGTV. Or you can watch it here on Facebook. But let's actually, this quick housekeeping note. Every so many weeks, I get like a spammer account like that duplicates my content and tries to fool you all into giving over your money. Don't do that. I don't know how to stop this. No, many of you messaged me on Instagram and said that there's somebody that duplicated the content and was emailing or direct messaging people about giving away a reading or purchasing a reading. This is actually happening to me and other colleagues of mine. If you work at Instagram, is there anything we can do about this, or Facebook? Because I report it, you all report it, and I think it's very odd that I don't have a lot of recourse. So the account's still up, but if you got a weird request from me on Instagram, I didn't send it. Somebody, God knows where, sent it. So that's a little quick note about scammers. I guess this is where I'm at in life, or even where my colleagues are at. We're having people duplicate our account, but I only come to me. I mean, you, of course, go to other people, but don't go to scammers. But yeah, just so you're a friendly reminder, you can follow me at empoweringastrology.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Empowering Astro. But anyway, let's look at the astrology this week, September 27th through October 3rd, 2021. Mercury retrograde. So today, September 27th, Mercury turns retrograde. This happens every 3 to 4 months. So this is not a big deal, but I know a lot of big deals are made about Mercury retrograde. So I just want to kind of quickly break down what retrogrades are. Astronomically, the planet does not go backwards in the sky, but it appears to go backwards. So that's the astronomical level, and this is where the sun is the planet is going around the sun, and just from the perspective of Earth, it appears to sort of go backwards. But that's just an optical illusion. But astrologically, what does this mean? Something that I said earlier is that the astrology is 50%, you are the other 50%. There's this energy, the energy of the astrology. So what is energy? Energy is either active or receptive. This is something that they call in Asia yin or yang. In astrology, in Western astrology, we have the same concept. It's called masculine and feminine. Does it mean gender? It means energy. Is it a plus on the battery, or is it a minus on the battery? That's sort of these two dualistic states that exist energetically, and we see this in astrology. So the sun and the moon are sort of this dual pair, and then we have Mercury, it rules two signs. Venus rules two signs, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, etc. They all rule two signs. It shows the duality of existence. And then you have a planet, it's either in its active state, it's direct, or it's in its receptive state. It's retrograde. So Mercury is known because, or are known the most for being retrograde because it does it the most. And I just say this because I don't want you all to grind your lives to a halt during Mercury retrograde. Of course, things can get a little weird and screwy, so just do your due diligence, back things up, clear up any miscommunication. But yeah, so Mercury, it turns retrograde, and then the planet, it's in its receptive state. So what is receptive? Well, it intuits instead of acts. It feels, it's sort of, we're integrating our experiences and our choices. And this happens with all the planets. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they spend 4 to 5 months out of the year retrograde. That's nearly half the year retrograde. So just know that the planet is either in its active phase or its receptive phase. And right now, Mercury is in its receptive phase. So until October 18th, Mercury will appear to go backwards in the sky. And it's doing so in the sign of Libra. Libra is relationships. It's not just romantic relationships. Libra is about how do we connect and socialize with people on a one-on-one level. Of course, this can be serious relationship, but this is really all relationships. So relationships, they're important. Astrology teaches us that we can't do things alone. That's part of Libra seasons. And this is a technical point, but it's one I like to say often. Saturn is exalted in Libra. Saturn does its best work in the sign of partnership. And so this reminds us that we need connection, we need balance, we need equity. So here's Mercury retrograde, and it's in Libra. It will go from 25 degrees all the way back to 10 degrees. So in a way, we're sort of rewinding, going back to about September 6th or 7th. That's where Mercury was when it was at 10 degrees. Curiously enough, September 6th was the Virgo new moon, a Mercury ruled sign. So we're going back to maybe some choices that we made, some actions that we did. We're reintegrating something. It's a reflection instead of an action. It's just, we all have to, of course, move forward with our lives. We can't just put things on hold, but it is important from a, let's say, consciousness level to understand that this is a time to feel instead of think. Mercury is in its receptive stage. So Libra, relationships, it's a time when we need to take a second look at relationships. Is there a friendship that needs going back to? Does something need to be recalibrated? Does something need to come back into balance? Because Libra is the sign of the scales, and it reminds us that things need to be in balance and in harmony. So that's another way of looking at this Mercury retrograde phase. Look at your relationships. If there's a lack of relationships, well, how do you bring new people into your life? If there is a loose end that needs to be tied up between you and somebody else, it is very stereotypical Mercury retrograde that old lovers, old people come out of the woodworks at this time. Well, how do you clear something up with somebody? How do you get closure on something? How do you revisit something? And I know sometimes people say, if you start a relationship during Mercury retrograde, it's doomed. No, not necessarily. Not all decisions or events that happen during Mercury retrograde are doomed. They just have a different energetic signature. The other thing to keep in mind that Mercury turns to retrograde at 25 degrees of Libra. I mentioned that because Pluto is around 25 degrees right now. It's over in Capricorn, so this is called a square. When a planet turns retrograde, it sort of hovers around the same degree for a couple of weeks or a week, And so Mercury is sort of sitting in the square to Pluto. So Mercury and Pluto is just classic investigator energy. It has to get to the bottom of things. It's very revealing. Sometimes things can be revealed when a planet turns station or direct. Station is the fancy astrological term for saying that a planet turns, it appears to either stop or move forward in the sky at stations. But it could be a time when you and somebody else, whether it's a romantic partner, whether it's just a one-on-one connection that you have in your life, maybe you have a really deep conversation. Pluto likes to go deep. It's, Libra typically has this reputation for keeping things surface, but Pluto, it's not a surface planet. Pluto wants evolution. It wants evolution by any means possible. So it's like, how are you using your voice? What are the choices that you're making in a relationship? How are you opening up to somebody else? What old material needs to be transmuted? With Pluto, there's sort of this archetype of like looking into the mirror. Pluto shows us things that we don't normally want to look at. So that's sort of the other side to this Mercury retrograde. Pluto or Mercury will make another square to Pluto later this week. I believe it's on Friday, October 10th or October 1st. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's right. But it will go back to 10 degrees. It'll turn direct on October 18th, and then I think by the end of the month it's back. It's out of Libra and into Scorpio. So yeah, this is a time to take a second look at relationships. What is unequal? How do we put things back into balance and harmony in our relationships? So something, just a different way to look at things. But, I know things still happen, annoying things happen. So just don't, sometimes I always get messages during Mercury retrograde. Oh my God, I have to get a car, or I have to sign something, or I have to start a job. And well, listen to your intuition. Is this the right choice for you? We can't necessarily all afford to put our lives on hold. We just have to sort of look at things differently. So that's, and then there's other planets that turn retrograde. Saturn's going to turn direct on October 10th. Jupiter is going to turn direct next week. So we've got, planets sort of shifting and moving throughout October. I even think Pluto turns direct in October. So things are going to start to shift in October. But that's, I'm getting ahead of myself. But Mercury turns retrograde today. Then we have Sun trine Saturn. The Sun in Libra will make a supportive trine to Saturn on September 29th. I don't always point out trines because their energy, here's the thing, this is a little bit of an intermediate point, but I know some of you study astrology. Squares are the energy of manifestation, means they bring something into the physical world. Trines, however, they're like a thought, an inspiration, an idea, an opportunity, but that thought, inspiration, idea, opportunity has to be brought into the physical realm. So sometimes trines are nice, but we have to do the extra work to bring it into reality. So the Libra Sun, it trines Saturn. Saturn's in Aquarius. It's been in Aquarius since December 17th of 2020, and it'll be in Aquarius until March of 2023. I know, it's a long time. Saturn spends 2 to 3 years in one sign alone. But this could be a good week for you to use this energy, the supportive energy, to build, to construct, to make things real. Saturn is all about the manifested world, but this is happening in air signs. Libra is an air sign. Aquarius is an air sign. So it's about relationships, exchange, partnership, connection, systems, networks, community. So how do you build something that's fair? How do you create new friendships or new groups or new community? How do you go back, Mercury retrograde, how do you go back to old connections and strengthen them? So this is how you could possibly use Sun trine Saturn to your benefit, but you got to put the extra work in to actually make it real. I also think that this is a little bit of a check-in with Saturn this week. Saturn again will be in Aquarius until March of 2023. But there's one area of our life, wherever Aquarius is in our chart, that we are doing a lot of extra work right now. That's what Saturn does. It goes into a sign, which it did in December of 2020, and it said to that sign, or said to that part of our life, you have to do this part of your life better. Collectively, Saturn and Aquarius is all about the society and humanity and social causes and social justice and equity and fairness and balance. But it's also about the different communities that we're a part of, feeling disconnected, but also feeling disconnected. I think that that's a really strong theme with this Saturn and Aquarius, is that we're seeing two sides of the coin. We're seeing the need for connection and the strengthening of relationships, but we're also seeing where we are disconnected. And that's the thing about any planet. You will always experience the duality of the planet in the sign. The duality of Saturn and Aquarius is connection versus disconnection, feeling your humanity versus feeling your inhumanity, being part of the collective or feeling separate from the collective. And so we're sort of wrestling with these two sides, which sounds very Libra, because that's one of the things that Libra teaches us. It's about weighing both sides and putting the duality of life into harmony and balance, so it doesn't tip either way. It might be in the show notes, but there is an article called Saturn and Aquarius Sign by Sign, so you can have a little quick refresh of what area of your life Saturn has set the bar higher for you, and where you are creating new structures, new framework, new boundaries, and working harder to make this part of your life a little bit stronger. This is why some of you, I made a kind of offhand joke probably last year where I was like, yeah, Saturn and Aquarius is going to go through your phone and start deleting contacts, because that's the thing, is that the bar is set higher in our friendships. We can't have sort of fly-by-night friendships anymore with Saturn and Aquarius. People have to be in our life more strongly. Starting to see some familiar faces in the live chat. Hello, nice to see you all. The other thing that's happening this week is, and there's a couple of other aspects, but it's one of those things where I can't talk about all of them, otherwise we would be here all night. But Mars will make an opposition to Chiron later this week. It'll do it on Friday, October 1st, and then on Sunday, we're going to have another sun opposite Chiron. So I just, wanted to mention Chiron, because as we go into the end of this week, we start to run into this thing about Chiron, is that it's a little bit doesn't manifest the way the other planets do, because it sort of works on a different level of energy. It's sort of this current, this feeling, this sadness or pain or some sort of old thing that keeps coming up again and again, whether it's self-worth, whether it's standing up for yourself, whether it's being able to say something, whether it's some of the deeper pain points that you've experienced in your life. So Chiron talks about a couple of things. It's a pain point. I say this because a lot of people call Chiron the wounded healer, and I just want to take that phrase and throw it out the window, because it doesn't really say anything. Like, what does that mean? Chiron is a pain point. We all have something, because we're human, that makes us suffer. And that pain point, that button, will again and again and again get pressed throughout different points in your life. The work, this is Chiron as a healing, a point of healing, not just suffering or not just pain, is that we have to do our work to transmute and to heal that pain point. It's almost like scar tissue, that thing that keeps hurting, we have to go back to, and we have to work it out. But the thing about Chiron, it says that there's a personal experience and there's a collective experience. The things that that make me suffer, the things that I feel pain around, they're not specific just to me. They're part of a collective experience. And the more that I can heal myself or work on myself in the consciousness of helping others and helping others heal, the more that takes me out of the limitations of that personal story around pain and suffering. And then, if let's say I can't speak. Let's say that's my thing. But the more that I find my voice, for example, the more that I share myself with the world, the more that inspires other people to find their voice, and maybe those that didn't have a voice. And that's sort of the personal and that dual, that personal and the collective experience with Chiron. And Chiron is the symbol of a key, and we don't get to the level of being able to use Chiron as a key until we are able to step out of the limitations of our personal story. We all have something that we have a story about, and we have to be careful not to make it part of our identity. We are not our pain and suffering, as tempting as it is. We are something more than that. But yes, of course, things have happened to you, things have happened to me, but we all have a work to do, and that's what Chiron speaks to, this sort of the personal healing that we're doing, but also how that in turn benefits the collective healing experience. So I mentioned that in case you've got that stubborn old story coming up, and you might have that person in your life as sort of an avatar of an old pain and suffering. And maybe this is a weekend or a Friday where you do things differently. I always think of late, I was watching a Tina Turner documentary on HBO Max a few months ago, and she was saying things that were very Chiron. She has her own story of huge suffering, physical abuse from her then husband, and even sexual abuse from her then husband. And for her, it's very painful to tell her story, and she always says, like, I want this to be the last time I tell my story. But then she'll have people come up to her and say, thank you for telling your story, because you told your story, I was able to, leave this person or do this or do that. And so there's something positive that comes out of a deeper pain and suffering. But that's a little bit more of a bigger example. But we all have something in our life that makes us feel pain, feel suffering. Unfortunately, that's just part of the human experience, but the more that we help others, the more that we transcend that suffering. So I say that because we've got some pretty strong Chiron aspects this weekend. Mars opposite Chiron. Now Mars is in Libra, so Libra is a sign of relationships, but Mars is not typically at home classically in Libra. So this is a story around learning to individuate. Learning to, of course, find partnership and balance in this time of year, but not losing ourselves, not giving away our power. Mars opposite Chiron, Chiron's over in Aries. We have to be brave and courageous to maybe face some things. We all are human beings, and there's moments where we don't stand up for ourselves, where we don't want to face something and we try to hide. Or we do other things instead of really confront or stand up for ourselves, if I didn't say it already. So Chiron and Aries talks about this healing story that has to happen around finding our courage, our bravery, our motivation, being able to take action and move forward with something. And if you have Chiron and Aries, which means you were born 1968 to approximately 1977, I believe, then this is a story that's very personal to you because you were born with Chiron and Aries, and you are having what's called a Chiron return. That's a whole other story. I actually, in the show notes, included a introduction clip to a webinar I did at the end of 2019 on Chiron, so you can get a little bit more information. But the sun will oppose Chiron on Sunday, October 3rd. So the sun is the self and the ego, and we have to really be brave enough to be ourselves right now. It's not always easy. Certainly there's a lot of things going on in the world, but that's sort of your bigger overview of the astrology. Let's look at, of course, the 12 signs. We'll go back to Mercury Retrograde and see where you have to do some redo, some rework, some recalibration in your life. And of course you can, there'll be the timestamps when I publish this to Instagram or to YouTube, so you can go and click on your own sign, on your rising sign, or the sign of your partner, or the sign of your best friend, and get a different perspective for them. But Aries. So Mercury is turning retrograde in your sign of relationships. So yes, Libra is your relationship sign, and Mercury for you talks about your voice, how you communicate, how you think, how you listen. But it's also a planet that talks about discernment and being able to kind of think clearly and sort of figure out what's right for you, and also how you take care and serve others. So Mercury turning retrograde in your relationship sign says that you have to look at a partnership, all types of partnerships, not just romantic partnerships. Look at a partnership differently. Is it equitable? Are you able to make the best choices? Are you using discernment? Are you able to say what you need to say? Maybe that's where the Chiron influence is coming in. Mars right now is in Libra. Libra is your relationship sign, so maybe things are a little blustery in your relationships right now. That's the thing about Mars when it goes into the relationship sign, is that things are typically, something comes up. It's like something that was, kind of simmering behind the scenes, and now you have to deal with it. But Mars is your planet, so you're really focused right now on relationships, but there's a part of your life that you have to sort of rework, recalibrate, and review until October 18th. Very typical Mercury retrograde experience is that old lovers, old partners, old connections appear. So don't be surprised if somebody from your past comes back. It's just kind of typical Mercury retrograde behavior, but you don't have to put your life on hold. Just use different discernment during this time. Taurus. So Libra is your sign of health and wellness. So this is a time for you to take a second look at how you take care of your body, how you eat, how you work out, how you organize even your day-to-day life, because this is a part of your life that does talk about the really nitty-gritty of your life. So on one level, if you have some sort of medical thing that needs a second look, get a second opinion, make some doctor's appointments, because you're kind of seeing things from a different perspective. Trust your intuition. Get organized. Go back to an old project that you started but have not finished. It's about work. It's about organization. It's about reorganization. Maybe a way that somehow you created something with Mercury direct and Libra. You have to kind of create it differently. You do have Mercury square Pluto right now, so maybe that's helping you to shed light on something that you've been trying to get to the bottom of. Gemini. So Libra is your fifth sign. The fifth sign is about self-expression. It's about being yourself. It's about creativity, talents. So this is a time to go back and how are you using your talents? How are you expressing who you are? You've got Mars there too. So Mars has been giving you a little bit of fire and passion and motivation and creative drive. And maybe you start something, a creative project, or even something about children. This part of the chart does talk about children, but that said, maybe you need to go back to something creative. Maybe you need to be yourself. Maybe you need to use your voice in a way where you are actually expressing who you are. Maybe you need to look at some of the choices that you've been making over the last, 3 weeks. One was September 6th, 7th. That was 3 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago. But this is a time when, in a way, it's about you, Gemini, because Mercury is your planet. It goes retrograde 3 to 4 times a year. So this is your receptive phase, not an active phase. Gemini, you cannot go forward all the time. You'd be a maniac. So this is your just natural time to go back and to reflect. Look at what what's been unfolding in your life since Mercury went into Libra back in August. Maybe, you sort of were thinking about doing things one way, and now it's time to do things a different way. But that said, Mercury is turning retrograde in a square to Pluto, so maybe you need to take a second look at some self-destructive tendencies. Certainly, Pluto is holding a mirror to you, Gemini. So maybe this is you're examining the self, how you express yourself, both in its positive facet and maybe it's not so helpful facet. So this is a time of when you're maybe feeling a lot of feels, but also looking at who are you? Who are you really? And Mercury Retrograde is giving you a different perspective. Cancer. So Libra is your sign of home and family. So the spotlight, of course, certainly this time of year with the sun in Libra, is about home and family, putting down roots, really creating like that stability in your life. Maybe you're thinking about a move. Maybe you're thinking about a move after the Libra new moon on October 7th. So Mercury turning retrograde in this part of your chart, like maybe you have to go back to a family matter. Maybe you need to look at something from the past. Mercury is a planet for you that does talk about things that are hidden, unconscious, something that's sort of deeply buried emotionally. And so maybe this is a time when you are maybe able to access something intuitively and feel something that you wouldn't normally want to feel, or maybe you haven't let yourself feel. But Cancer, got to do some quick astrology math. Virgo is your third house. So this is a time to really be able to talk about something with a family member, maybe something you haven't been able to talk about. But also it's a time when you are seen in your home environment in different lights. And I will say Mars is also in this part of the chart, so things are probably not quiet in your home environment. So if you started any projects or if something began earlier in September, maybe you have to go back and revisit it. But if you are moving or thinking about a move, it's not the end of the world that Mercury is retrograde, but just do your due diligence. But I think this is more for Cancer, is your ability to feel something, connect to an emotion, to go back to a past issue, maybe talk about it with a therapist, maybe heal something, transform something, but also to be able to have a conversation either with a close loved one or a family member that you haven't been able to have before. Leo. So Libra is your third sign. So this is a typically, especially with Libra season, Mars in Libra, like this is a busy time for you, Leo. You're on the go, you're on the move, got things to do. It's a time of travel, do that safely, of course. But Mercury retrograde in this time, like maybe you have to go back to something that you either like thought, created, agreed to, a conversation that you had earlier in September. So it's not that I think communication is really highlighted this time for you, Leo. So really be aware of how you're using your voice, especially with Mars in this part of the chart. I can't remember when Mars went into Libra, but maybe you've been saying things, it's been a little pointed. Maybe the filter hasn't, because that's the thing about Mars, is that it's not very, typically, it's not very diplomatic, is the word I'm looking for. So Mercury in this part of your chart does ask for diplomacy. It does ask for a second look. It does ask for you to use your intuition. Sorry, it's my dog. Anyway, so how do you see things differently? How do you see the side, somebody else's side? It might be a time when you have to have a conversation with a friend. Might be a time when you're having to reevaluate something that you've purchased or you've invested in. But that said, communication is really highlighted for you, Leo, over the next few weeks, and just use communication wisely. And maybe if there's been a block in your communication, maybe that Mercury square Pluto is going to help you out. Libra. So Mars. Mercury is turning retrograde in your sign. And this, of course, also is Libra rising as well. But you got a lot of things going on this season, Libra, other than your birthday. Mars is sort of blazing a path for you. It's a time of new beginnings, taking action, moving forward. But that's the thing about retrogrades. We can't always move forward. We do have to take a step back and reflect, see things from a different perspective. Mercury is a planet of communication, so typically this time has been where you have had a lot to say. And maybe you have said some things that you have to go back and revisit. Maybe you've made some choices. Maybe you've taken action with certain things that need a second look or a recalibration. Mercury for you, it's a sign that talks about a planet that talks about opinions and convictions and beliefs. So maybe you have to really look at some of the convictions that you've been putting your full weight behind. Maybe you've gotten into some untypical Libra arguments ever since Mars arrived in Libra. And maybe it's like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to see an argument from somebody else's perspective. But I will say, because I was mentioning Mars, I was mentioning Chiron earlier, that this is also a time I think that you're also looking at relationships and some sort of thornier issues that might be coming up in relationships right now. So Libra, you have to, of course, be yourself, but how do you work something out with somebody? And maybe it's something old and maybe it's even painful. But I believe in you, Libra, but I think that Mercury is actually trying to help you out and help you to get a different perspective. Scorpio. So Mercury is in what's called your 12th sign, your 12th house. And typically when a planet is in the 12th, we don't really fully have access to it because the 12th is the last area of the chart. It's an area where it's about the non-manifested world, meaning, the whole of the zodiac is sort of this journey from the beginning, birth, Aries, all the way to Pisces. And Pisces represents we're leaving the physical world, the earthly world, and into going to something non-physical. So the 12th has that energy. So Mercury in this part of the chart says that this is not a Mercury that we typically have access to. It's about the times that you don't use your voice. Or the other side is looking at how you use your intuitive voice. Do you trust your intuition? I mean, you're Scorpio, you're supposed to trust your intuition, but maybe you don't always listen to yourself. So Mercury is saying, go back to your intuitive voice. Go back to your spirituality. Gemini is what's called Scorpio's 8th sign. So there's this sort of direct connection that's happening between the 8th and the 12th during this Mercury retrograde. And maybe your psychic abilities is more active. Mars is there. Mars is in the 12th sign. It'll be in the 12th sign until Halloween, October 31st. So Scorpio, this is not a time for you to really push real hard. This is a time to rest, to reflect, to maybe search your soul. Maybe Mercury retrograde is helping you to search your soul and to think about your life and what you want, the choices that you've made. But it's a very spiritual time for you with this retrograde. Virgo is your sign of, Mercury rules Virgo. Virgo is your sign of friends and community. So maybe this is a time to heal something in a friendship, to bring something to a close, to maybe even have a very different type of relation with a friend or community. But this is a time, again, for you to really, look at your dreams, meditate, reflect, rest. And maybe if you're really more tired than usual, Scorpio right now, that's not surprising because Mars at the moment doesn't have a lot of drive. It has to be used right now towards spiritual or non-earthly pursuits. And then that brings you to the start of a new cycle, and that will be October 31st when Mars goes into Scorpio. Sagittarius. So Mercury is in your 11th sign, and the 11th sign is about community. It's about your social network, your social circle, your friends. And this is a time where Mars is up there too. So you're thinking about the big stuff right now, Sagittarius. Like where are you headed? The future. After Mars went out of Virgo, that was about your career. Well, what is the next step? Where do you want to steer the ship of your life? But also Mars is really trying to help you connect with community and to make friends, or maybe even to get into some arguments with friends. That's only if Mars is being more argumentative than not. But Mars is drive, it's action, it's inspiration, and you're really inspired right now to look towards the future. But so Mercury is asking you to reconsider something. Maybe you've gathered up all these big ideas, but what's going to work? So you have to do the discernment, you have to do the reflection, you have to intuit what is the next step in your life. That said, maybe you need to look at a matter with a friend or a matter in your community from a different perspective, so you make different choices. It's a good time to network in your professional life, to go back to your professional network. And because Mercury also is a relationship planet for you, looking not just at your friendships, but also, are you and a partner on the same page? Are you kind of aligned towards the same future? Do you have the same goals and ideas, or is there something that has to come into alignment? Capricorn. Capricorn, so Libra is your 10th sign. So this has just been a time for you, Capricorn, especially with Mars there, to really focus on your professional life, your professional goals, your ambitions, your responsibilities, and the role that you want to play, or at least the role that other people want you to play in the world. So this is a busy time for you, Capricorn. But Mercury sort of says that even though you may have been pushing out into the world a lot since August, it's time to rewind things a little bit, to take a second look. And if something has started in your professional life since August, well, then Mercury may have to bring you back to something. Doesn't mean that you can't move forward in your professional life, but again, a retrograde is a receptive feminine yin phase. It's not an active masculine phase. So it's a time to discern, it's a time to feel, it's a time to trust your intuition, it's time to connect in the world in a very different way. And maybe if somebody makes you a professional offer, or there's something, maybe you are waiting, you don't necessarily have to wait, but maybe things just naturally start to move forward after October 18th. That's just how the energy wants to flow. I will add, your planet Saturn is going to come out of retrograde on October 10th. It's been retrograde, I believe, since May. I hope I'm right. And what you spend 5 months out of the year retrograde, which is totally normal. So maybe this has been a time where you have to sort of wait for Saturn to go direct for you to really fully be in more of that active forward motion of Saturn direct. But that said, look at your professional life and get a different perspective. Don't rush to choice. That's the thing about Mars and Mercury in the same sign, is normally very impulsive and very quick and very fast. But the retrograde says, don't be impulsive, don't be quick, don't be fast. Just deliberate. Do the legwork. Aquarius. So Libra is your 9th sign. The 9th sign is the place of education. It's foreign travel. It helps us to see the world both literally and metaphorically. And it's a time when you are also perhaps a little full of opinions or perspectives, or feeling very inspired to share your faith or your truth, or to stand up for what you believe in, including your convictions. So Mars in this part of the chart maybe has you fired up. It's been there since August. So Mercury says, don't shoot your mouth off. How do you look at things from a little bit more of a diplomatic perspective? See the other side of things. Maybe you were really sure about what you believed in and you're absolutely sure that this was true, but Mercury is turning retrograde and saying, actually, maybe you want to just double check your facts, double check what you think is true, what you believe in. It's just part of the homework of life. And so this is just asking you to be a little bit more flexible in your thinking. It doesn't mean that you're not right or something is not true, but just to be flexible. That's what Mercury wants. Mercury just wants options. It wants flexibility. It wants choices. It doesn't necessarily like to just completely come down hard on one thing. That's why Mercury is in its detriment in Sagittarius, but that's another story for another time. But that said, maybe you have to go back to something about your education. Maybe if you're traveling, there's something that just has to be worked out, because this can also speak to long distance journeys. But I think it is a time to really look at mentally what's going on in the world. I gotta do some quick math. So also I believe Virgo is your 8th sign. That's right. Yeah, Virgo's your 8th sign. So maybe you have to look at something that's hidden. Maybe you believe in something, but that's based on information that you don't have the full story. I will say Mercury is squaring Pluto, so something may come out, or maybe you just have to transform how you think or how you use your voice. Last but not least, Pisces. So Mercury is turning retrograde in your 8th sign. Mercury has been in Libra sometime. It's like the beginning of September. I really should have that date in my brain. But that said, this has been a time to really do the deep work. Whenever Mercury goes into this part of the chart, we have to work on our emotional health, not just our physical health. We have to talk about the things that we don't normally talk about in day-to-day or public life. This is a time that's been about secrets, about intuition, about vulnerability, really opening up your vulnerability, Pisces. So Mercury turning retrograde says that you have to go back and look at something from a different perspective, and something at the level of the psyche, the level of the deepest parts of yourself. And when any planet goes through the 8th, it's a test in a way. The 8th is where we are tested by life. So Mercury is being tested. Mars is also in Libra, is being tested. And even Libra season for you, Pisces, this is your time in your zodiac calendar to be tested emotionally, spiritually, because it's in this alchemy of the 8th that we all have to experience at some point in the year, or some, perhaps longer if it's a planet that spends longer than a few months in that part, where you have to go through that emotional alchemy so that you can be transformed. Maybe you're not feeling very comfortable at the moment, Pisces. Maybe you're feeling very exposed, very vulnerable. Mercury is a big player in your astrology. It rules your career. Wait, no, it doesn't really. It rules your home. It rules your relationships. So maybe some of this vulnerability and feeling exposed and some of these deeper emotions that are coming up have to do with a relationship. So look and see what the story is right now, Pisces. It's likely very deep. Maybe it's sticking on some points, but how do you use this time to its maximum effect, its maximum healing, its maximum transformation? So really be, even though we say it's a receptive time, it's not about action, but you can still use this energy in a powerful feminine, I mean that energetically, not gender, yin way, which is to kind of feel into the small spaces and the crevices and the hidden spots and get into something that maybe you weren't able to get to when Mercury was direct. So that is your look at the astrology of September 27th through October 3rd, 2021. I meant to mention this earlier, but I'm doing an Instagram live on Thursday, October 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I'm doing it with, her name is Mindfully Melissa, so at Mindfully Melissa. The details are in my Instagram IG story. She tagged me as well. There will be more details later, but if you're on Instagram, there will be an Instagram live at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's 4 p.m. Pacific. I can't do time zone conversions on the fly. Sorry, it's like a different part of my brain than the astrology. But yeah, hopefully you can join me on Instagram live. I'm sure that can be reposted. October 1st is Friday. Then it's September 30th. See, this is why I have you all looking out for me. Yeah, September 30th 8 p.m. Eastern on Instagram Live. So that's hopefully you all can join me there. But again, that is your look at the astrology of September 27th through October 3rd. Thank you all for joining me again and again, and I will see you all next week. You can follow me online at empoweringastrology.com. Book a consultation with me. I'm going to be having a lot more educational offerings in the near future, just trying to get that all done. Maybe Mercury Retrograde, I finally get it done. And until then, have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye.